Hey, what's good? This is gonna be a bit of a weird video, considering two things. Number one, I've already pretty much made this video, albeit a little less organized, I would say. And number two, I look and to a certain extent feel awful because I've been researching for this video all day. But if you didn't read the title or see the thumbnail or anything, this is another JoJolion video where I'm talking about what's going to happen in JoJolion. And as you can probably see based on my screen, I'm talking about Jobin in particular, because it's probably my favorite subject when talking about JoJolion, because I really think that Jobin could come back and be a major villain once again, even though he supposedly died. So I've got four little sections that I've divided this into, and each little thing I have some pages from the manga, and I'll pull up each one at a time, and I'll talk about it, and hopefully you guys will tell me what you guys think down in the comments. So let's go right into number one, which this is basically going over starting with why Jobin would be a good villain. Number one, because of his villainous nature. So we're starting here. If it wants to pull up the image, it's taking a while to load these up, but it should be all good. So this, just going back to the introduction of Jobin. I mean, number one of the most dramatic entrances for a character, at least in JoJolion, but definitely out of all of JoJo, I definitely remember this introduction of Jobin as one of the more dramatic introductions of a character. So I feel like that it kind of goes along with the idea that he is going to play a major role, and not that he hasn't, but that it seems like he's going to be like one of the biggest forces in the whole part. And also, I'm sure people have noticed this, but the man's dressed like a Rokakaka. I mean, come on. There's no way that I wouldn't believe, just based on the fact, like, not even like his suit necessarily. Look at the side of this man's head. He looks like a Rokakaka, okay? There's no way you're gonna make me believe that he's not the head honcho of the Rokakaka gang or whatever the hell. Okay, so number two, we've got this. So this is right after the page we just saw, where Jobin and Norisuke are going to leave, and Norisuke's stand King Nothing traces the smell of the Rokakaka fruit that they got earlier from Yagiyama Yotsuyu, and it finds it on Jobin's handkerchief. So immediately we have reason to suspect Jobin, and like immediately tied into the number one plot device in this entire part. And you know, I feel like that it would be a big old waste to just be like, yeah, I mean, he's important, and like he's like the biggest lead that we have on the entire gang of theirs, of the rock people. But you know, he's not the big guy. It's whatever. No, I feel like that wouldn't be very good. Also, just one thing in particular that I wanted to point out down here, just look, okay, I zoomed in a little too much, but just look at this panel. If that isn't some villain shit, I swear, this is one of the most like villainous panels that in JoJo that I've ever seen. Like I'm sure there's one of this caliber, but just like this is what people talk about when they're talking about JoJo shading. Like, this is so JoJo villain. You've got the shading, the look on his face, the menacing logo. Like, come on, it's all there. There's no way in hell this man isn't a villain. Oh my god. Okay, this first section in particular, by the way, if I didn't already make it clear, is it's much more lax than my other sections are, where it's kind of just like, hey, look at him, he looks like a bad dude. Wouldn't that make sense for him to be a bad dude? So yeah, this, we've got introduction of Speed King, which, just want to point out, his stand is fucking horrifying if you haven't noticed. Look at this. It's horrifying. It's so... I hate looking at it, if I'm being honest. And once again, with the shading and more of the menacing logos, oh my god. But I swear, just everything. And this is like the first major interaction that he has, other than his introduction. This is like the first thing he does once they get back to the house. And it's total villain shit. Oh my god. Oh, and then here, I have a good little thing here. This is a piece that I'm really proud of. It's talking about right after they finish Jobin and Josuke, that is, they finish the stag beetle fight. Right afterwards, Jobin is like grilling Josuke about what his intentions were. So he hands him he hands him the tissue box, and Josuke goes to take a tissue at first, and then he starts heating up, and his nosebleed that he has gets worse. So it's talking about he melted the wax from inside Rosenberg's stag beetle's body, and he also wiped his Rosenberg with a brush. This nosebleed is happening because of heat. He made me conduct heat, 70 degrees Celsius. It's just in one part of a blood vessel, but he most likely placed some heat in a small part of my body. The nosebleed happened after I wiped the sweat off my face. That's the sort of ability Higashikata Jobin has. So, basically, what's just been described is that Jobin stored heat in an object. And also, I do want to say, this was a point that I had in my first JoJolion video. So Jobin's ability, Speed King, it stores heat in an object, and then when someone touches that object, he can make it trigger, and making that person conduct heat, and like heating them up and damaging them. Which sounds a whole lot similar to Killer Queen. It's a very, very similar ability. It's just heat instead of an explosion. So I think that is a decently strong case as to why Jobin could be main villain, because this is a point where I should bring up the parts 7 and 8, so the alternate universe parts. They have a lot of elements from parts in the previous universe. Like, it's very well known that part 7 has a lot of influence from parts 1, 2, and 3. And it's very obvious from JoJolion just looking at it, like the first couple chapters. There's very clear influence from part 4, but I think what a lot of people miss is that there's also influence from parts 5 and a little bit of 6 in there as well. So, if this is taking inspiration, whatever, paying homage to part 4, wouldn't it make sense that the person who has an ability that's very similar to the main villain's ability from part 4 would also be the main villain in this part? I just feel like that makes sense. And you might say, oh, there's also Killer Queen. I mean, yeah, but also by the time the story actually starts, Kira Yoshikage is already dead, so Jobin is the next closest. And plus, with all the other images that I showed before, it's kind of, it definitely establishes Jobin as a villain. And we've got this. This is kind of what I was talking about with influence from other parts, which is also another talking section that I have. But this is talking about it's Hirose Yasuho gets into the Higashikata house through Joshu's phone, and then Jobin takes that phone and puts it in the toilet, basically like starting to kill Yasuho. And now he's talking about why he did that and why he thinks it's alright. So he says that girl's trespassing on our house was an accident. Or actually, I should start at the beginning. We simply have a destiny to fulfill. There is no person in this world that can fault us for that. That girl's trespassing in our house was an accident. Understand, Tsurugi? A coincidence. She simply found her way in here by accident. Nothing you've done is the least bit wrong. Everything has sparkled with joy like a summer vacation, as it will from this point on. We've won. So, it reminds me a lot of Enrico Pucci, with the Heaven Plan from Dio, where he had it in his mind that it was the right thing to do, and that the world would understand and no one could fault him for what he was doing. But I mean, no one's going to dispute the fact that Enrico Pucci was the villain of Part 6. No one, I guarantee no one would dispute that. Well, I guess you could technically make an argument, but definitely most people consider Enrico Pucci to be the villain of Part 6, definitively. So, like I was talking about earlier, there's a lot of influence from Parts 4, 5, and 6. I feel like this is some influence from Part 6, just of the mindset of the villain, and also a little influence from Part 7 as well, with Funny Valentine, who was also a villain, and even Diego Brando, because with Funny Valentine and Diego Brando, Funny Valentine's whole thing was he wanted to be the one to take the napkin, he wanted to lead his country forward, which is a noble goal, but I mean, Funny Valentine was definitely a villain. And same thing with Diego Brando, he wanted to get back at the world for wronging him, you know? Like he almost drowned in the river when he was a baby, and then his mom actually cared about him, and then she ended up dying from tetanus because of the one guy at the place that they were staying. So like both of them, they have goals that like they think they're right and like justified in, but they're definitely villains. So I feel like the same sort of thing is going on with Jobin here, and there's influence from not only previous parts in the previous universe, but also Part 7, and that's a recurring thing that I'm going to be talking about in this. And here, this is jumping ahead a little bit. We've got right after he kills Norisuke, and the man literally right after killing him just shoves him right in a body bag. Like, this dude is cold as fuck. And I also just want to say that it reminds me a lot of Kira Yoshikage, once again, from Part 4, that is, not from Part 8, where he seems to be like killing all these people, including his own father, because he wants his family to, in a sense, live a quiet life and be happy. Which, I mean, that's the whole thing that Kira Yoshikage was going for. So, once again, there's a lot of influence there. And when I say influence, when it comes to Jobin, it's not just like any influence from Parts 4, 5, 6, or whatever. It's like specifically from Kira Yoshikage. It all comes from villains of previous parts. You would think if Jobin wasn't the villain, there would be some influence from like other aspects of parts 4, 5, 6, and 7, but it all seems to stem from previous villains. So I feel like that's at least a decently strong case as to why Jobin is most likely the main villain. But we're moving into number 2, which I kind of already talked about, but that's parallels to previous parts. And we're starting here in chapter 95. Oh man, can't wait for this to load up. Here we go. We're back on the death of Norisuke. I just wanted to put this here again because I mainly want to refer to it as it comes to part 5, actually. Some of you might not remember this, but if you remember back to the story of Diavolo, and like basically just like his origin story, he was raised by a priest, and they were great and everything, perfectly happy. And then the priest, he uncovered a body that supposedly Diavolo had hidden in his house, and then Diavolo killed him, which is basically what happened to Norisuke, you know? Norisuke uncovered that Sasame Ojiro was involved with the Rokakaka, and then he was killed in his pool. Oh my god, my grossness is off the charts. But it's very, very similar to Diavolo's story. Once again, more influence from a villain. So I feel like this is a big... The death of Norisuke shows a lot about Jobin's character. So I feel like this is a very, very important moment in establishing the main villain nature of Jobin. And then, more even to back it up, we've got, this is right after, and then everyone's trying to rush in, and Jobin immediately pushes them all away, and he says, "You'd better be prepared, otherwise close your mouths. We, the Higashikata family, are moving forward on this path, the right path." And once again, we've got more of the influence from part 6, where he thinks that his goal is truly just, and that he's doing the right thing, even after Norisuke just just exposed him, basically. And I think he was even talking about, oh, I'll only follow you if this is the right path. And then he exposes him for not being on the right path. But even still, Jobin is very confident that he's on the right path. A lot of people point to the death of Norisuke, and specifically like the page of like him crying after he did it, of him saying that he regrets doing that. But I don't think that at all. I think he was probably just crying because he was sad because it was his dad and he had to kill his dad. But I don't think he regrets doing it necessarily. I think he thinks it was necessary in order to further his agenda, which he thinks is right. So he probably thinks, oh, the death of my dad is a small price to pay for the entire family line to be saved. So I don't think he regrets killing Norisuke at all, which, I mean, it establishes his villain nature a lot more. So then we're skipping ahead another little bit to chapter 100, where we've got Josuke here right in front of Mamazuku, who is being killed by Josuke's soap bubbles right after attacking the head doctor. And it reminds me a lot of part 7, where Gyro was killed, and then that immediately led to Johnny unlocking Tusk Act 4. So here we've got Mamazuku is killed by Josuke's ability, which was unlocked by the Calamity. Let me see. Do I have? I don't. Okay. But there's a panel or a page right after this talking about how like even Toru is talking about my Calamity unlocked this ability of yours, and it just like made it visible to everything. So it like very similar to part 7 with Gyro dying and then Johnny unlocking Tusk Act 4 and the infinite rotation, which also it's even pointed out that basically what Josuke just unlocked is the spin. As Mamazuku says, they're lines, spinning lines. Your soap bubbles are made up of soft lines that spin. That spin, that's all that's there, and within there are things you cannot see. So basically, this is almost exactly what happened at the end of part 7. It's like the same format. Except, I guess, in part 7, Johnny, I don't remember Johnny being the cause of death for Gyro. But I mean, it's still very, very similar. You can't deny that. And also, you might say, oh, well then, if Toru was kind of the reason, almost, he was the reason that Mamazuku died, and kind of the causation of Josuke unlocking the spin, wouldn't that make Toru the main villain? Because he would be in the position of Funny Valentine in this scenario. But also, what you might be forgetting in that scenario is that Diego also came after, because there was Funny Valentine, where Johnny unlocks Tusk Act 4, but then they defeat Valentine, and then Diego comes in and kind of takes over as main villain for the rest of the part, which a lot of people consider Diego to be either the sole main villain of Part 7 or a main villain as well as Funny Valentine. So, I mean, Diego Brando is certainly a very, very large villain, and you could make the argument that he is the main villain because he's there through the whole part. And we might actually even see him before we see Funny Valentine. I'm not exactly sure on that, but he is there through the whole part, and he ends up being the one who is basically messing with Johnny right at the end. So, I think there's definitely a parallel that can be made there. And continuing on, oh yeah, also, I just wanted to make this very clear, so I included this. It makes it very clear that the spin is Josuke's ability, because we could see Toru's inner monologue saying, "What is this?" Then this is some ability of Josuke's that even he himself is not aware of. So, we know this is not Toru's ability. This is Josuke's ability that was just unlocked by the Calamity. So, it's not like, oh, it was Toru's ability, so this is a different scenario. No, I think this is a very clear parallel to Part 7. Is that all that I have for this section? It is. Okay. Well, next up, we've got Jobin versus Toru, because Toru has kind of been set up as the main villain. A lot of people think he's the main villain. So I think here is kind of some stuff on why that, like, differs. I don't know, like, why there's almost a conflict between Toru and Jobin. They're, like, competing almost to be main villain of the part. So I've got a couple things here. Like this panel from the Stag Beetle fight, where Jobin says, it's an Ida Mitsuo quote, but I think his use of it, it's a lot of foreshadowing. So we've got, if you take something by force, there is never enough. If you share it, there will always be something left over. And I think that goes along with kind of the difference of like motivation as villains between Jobin and Toru, and that's the main thing I think this section is about, is like their difference in motivation, because Toru has very like commercial motivations. He just wants to sell the Dokakaka and make a lot of money, versus Jobin, who wants to like help his family and cure them for generations. And we've got some more, here, let me skip this one for now. We've got this, where Toru is talking about him and his motivations. Okay, here we go. He says, I was thinking of setting the price for them at 200 million yen each, which he's talking about the new Dokakaka. But the wealthy people of the world will pay any amount of money for that. It will make It will make death and fate no longer equal, and power. With that, the distribution of power in society will be upended in an instant. Even people like Bill Gates will be buying them, I expect. So, we see that Toru is just trying to sell the Dokakaka, versus Jobin, who is like the villain of Part 7, Diego and Funny Valentine. They have just goals, and that seems to be more the writing style that Araki is going for, because definitely in earlier parts, like 1, 2, and 3, we have villains who are really only interested in sort of vanity, like Dio and the Pillarmen. They really just like want to take over the world. So it eventually shifts into more villains with goals that are more justified. So mainly starting with Part 6, but then definitely going into Part 7, he shifts over to that sort of writing style. So I think having Toru as the main villain, who his goal is literally just to make money, I feel like that would be a little weird. Especially when this is supposed to mirror, or not, I shouldn't say supposed to, I guess. But especially when this mirrors the later parts, 4, 5, and 6, and also 7, which is really where the shift in villain motivation started. I feel like it would be weird to just go back to having a villain that's just interested in money. So I feel like Jobin kind of fits the bill of a new JoJo villain a little better. And then, oh, here we go. I've got this, I'm gonna go back to this now. So this is right after Jobin attacks the head doctor that comes to him. So then they're talking about the calamity, and he says, "There's really no reason to assign a sequence to it, but that sequence is precious to me, and that precious thing is something I'll never let go of." And then he leaves to get killed, which I still think he's not actually dead. But I think the important part is the sequence part, which the page before, I checked it, and I was confused for a little while, but he doesn't even really talk about a sequence at all. He's not talking about sequences. And when talking about the calamity, he just suddenly starts talking about sequences. So I think this is him realizing what the sequence of the flow of calamity is. So I think he understands the flow of calamity. And he's talking about there's really no reason to assign a sequence, probably because he's thinking it doesn't matter if there's a sequence to it. It will just come for everyone no matter what. So I think that's kind of what he's referring to. And then just here, this is actually, because this comes from chapter 97, and then this page right here comes from chapter 102. So Jobin kind of predicted this 5 chapters in advance, where in chapter 102, because this is the first time we really learn about it being the calamity ability of Wonder of View. This is the first time we really like learn about it actually being a sequence. So it talks about Jobin has died, which I'll talk about that, about Toru talking about Jobin has died. I'll talk about that in a minute when I get to my next section. But Jobin has died, and soon Mitsuba and Norisuke and Tsurugi will die as well, and Joshu down there, as well as Mamozugurai and Josuke, are certain to die soon as well. What I'm saying is that you're not part of that sequence. If you don't do anything, you'll simply be fine. Simply do not look at my face. That is Wonder of View. Leave that pot containing the new Dokokaka there. Forget any of this happened. Return home with your body still in good health. So, this is really the first time we learn that there's actually a sequence to it. And of course, this comes right before Yasuho kind of puts herself at the front of that sequence. But I think this panel right here, before Jobin supposedly dies, I think that's part of the reason why he's probably fine, is because I think he knows about the calamity, and he learned about it, because he just attacked the head doctor. So, at this far away ago, I think who better would know about the calamity than the one guy who's actually attacked it. So I think Jobin probably knows what's up, and so he knows about the sequence before we even talk about it. So I think he probably had some sort of plan going into that. So he probably has a way to at least not die for a second. And this goes into my last talking point, which I think is the most important, and this is how Jobin actually comes back into the story. So it all starts here at his supposed death, right after that panel that we talked about before, where he talks about the sequence. So we've got him here, where he yells out for Mitsuba and Tsurugi, and then drops the pot and sort of just falls to the ground. And there's a lot of blood, sure, but I mean, we've seen a similar amount of blood in scenarios where the characters don't die, especially here. Oh shit, there we go. Okay, at the bottom here, if you can see, this little panel where it just like has his eyes like blacked out and he just says "Kuh." Like, that is not really indicative of someone who's died to me. That seems more like maybe he's just like passing out from blood loss. I mean, hell, Polnareff lost about this much blood in the Vanilla Ice fight, and he lived through part 5. I mean, he's a turtle by the end of it, but whatever. So I think this isn't definitive proof that he's dead, because I mean, he yells out for Mitsuba and Tsurugi, who are right there. They are literally, we just saw, he just left the room. They are right there. They almost certainly heard him, especially because he's yelling. And they probably heard him like fall over and drop the pot. So they're probably right there, and the Rokakaka is right there. So they definitely could come to him, and I say, let me just say, I think the method that he comes back is, they're gonna get the new Rokakaka and they're gonna feed it to him, and he's gonna get all better. He's gonna get all patched up, and he's be all good to go. So now let me just go into explaining how that works really. So next up we've got this, which this is the first time that anyone says that Jobin is actually dead. And this is before, earlier, remember when Toru said that Jobin is dead? This is before that. So, Joshu says, Big Bro Jobin is lying on the floor, covered in blood. Big Bro Jobin is dead. The Higashikata family is totally fucked. Even Tsurugi's body is all messed up. Everyone else is in there crying. So, I mean, this is really the only person that ever says that Jobin is dead. And if there's anyone in this series that if there's anyone in this series that we should listen to, it's not Joshu. Literally anyone except for Joshu. I would never believe Joshu about something like this. Not even necessarily because he's lying. He could be lying and he knows he's alive, but he also probably just didn't even check. He probably was just like, oh, that's a lot of blood, he's probably dead. So I think if there's one person not to trust their information in this scenario, it's definitely Joshu. And so now, going back to how Toru was able to say, oh, Jobin's dead, I mean, Joshu just said it. He probably just heard Joshu say it and was like, ah, man, I guess Jobin is dead. Alright, I guess I can be confident in that now. Because if we also remember back to the cause of Jobin's death, it was by calamity, sure. But the way it happened was, Jobin attacked the head doctor under the sheets, and then there was like an aerosol can there. So Jobin, with his like heat ability from Speed King, he kind of exploded the can, and the straw sort of thing that's in the nozzle of it stuck into his chest, and it started spurting out blood. But I believe the head doctor wasn't even there anymore. I think he had gone to maybe he had gone to go deal with Josuke. I'm not exactly sure how the timing works out there, but I know the head doctor wasn't there anymore. So Toru wasn't even there to see if he died or not. So that's why I feel like he's probably just going with Joshu's word. Especially because he probably doesn't know Joshu that well. And so he's probably like, okay, I can probably trust him. If he says he's dead, and I'm pretty sure I killed him, he's probably dead. But neither of them, Joshu nor Toru, really has any reason to believe that they're actually dead. So I think that there's still a decent shot that Jobin could come back. And here's a big part right here. Joshu, he has the Rokakaka pot, and he says, like I said, my little strawberry, look closely right here. There's already 2 of them. And 2 is emphasized. It's bolded and there's quotes around it. It's emphasized that there are 2 Rokakaka. They've grown. Wow. And we see there's the 2 Rokakaka, and it looks like some other ones could even grow. Okay, and then he continues on by saying, I couldn't help my own father just now. It was pathetic. It was my fault. I was in such a panic over what to do. I felt like I was going to lose my mind, but now what I have to do is crystal clear. I'm not scared because I'm the one that's got the new Rokakaka. And if this heals you, my little strawberry, it should heal Dad too. We can go heal him next. We'll still have the little one left over. I'm not going to let anybody die. I can heal Tsurugi-chan too. It should even be able to cure the family disease. I'm not going to be a disgrace anymore. I'm going to save everybody. So we hear that Jobin can even use the Rokakaka that's there to heal everybody. So, would it not make sense that, especially since there are 2 of them, that one of those could probably go to Jobin? I feel like that makes sense. And also, here, this is also important. We see Yasuho grab the bigger Rokakaka and take a bite out of it. But that's it. The important part here is that she only takes 1 bite out of it. So, even though there's still the possibility that Jobin could get the second fruit, he doesn't even need to do that, because there might be the problem of it not being ripe quick enough. Because if you go back, you can see that the other one isn't quite as big, so it's maybe not ripe yet. But that isn't even a problem, because Yasuo only takes 1 bite out of this one. And also, if we skip forward a little bit, here, where Toru takes the pot, the other Rokakaka, the one that Yasuho took a bite out of, she took it off of that plant. So one of the Rokakaka is still on that plant, but they still have 1, and it only has 1 bite taken out of it. They could take the pot back from Toru, but they could just also use the other Rokakaka that only has 1 bite taken out of it. And here we've got what actually happens when Yasuho eats the Rokakaka. So we see that it just fully heals her. Like, she's all good. So we know that the Rokakaka, the new Rokakaka that is, it totally has the ability to heal Jobin. It showed, like, Yasuho had the cracks on her face, she, like, hurt her knee or something, and she lost her arm, and they all grew back and were fine. Granted, she stole it from Joshu, but I'm sure, like, Mitsuba would probably be totally down to do something like that with Jobin. So, I think it, especially because Mitsuba believes in Jobin and, like, agrees with him about the whole situation, so I'm sure they could bring Jobin back and have him be fine. So, we know that the new Rokakaka that they have possession of has the ability to heal Jobin. And then here, we've got more about the flow of calamity. And we've got Yasuho going to call Nijimura K, and Toru talking about, oh, you're pressing it, then the order will change to you dying next. So, also you might have heard my noti sound. It's Wille Zeppeli from Part 1 anime, saying, "Hey baby." I don't know, I just thought it was funny. But anyway, that doesn't matter. But we see that not only is there a flow of calamity, like we talked about earlier, that it can change. It can change who goes first. So I'm not exactly sure of the timing of it, but it could be that Jobin was supposed to die when he was struck by the calamity, but possibly the order could have changed to someone else dying first, and so Jobin was spared momentarily, and then someone else was getting killed. Like I said, I'm not exactly sure on the timing of that, but something like that could be at play as well. And then I already talked about Toru taking the new Rokaka, which, I mean, if they end up killing Toru, then, I mean, they could just take this pot. But like I said, they also have the other one that they took off of there and only took 1 bite out of. And Toru doesn't take that one, I don't think. I mean, I just read through this, so I'm pretty sure he doesn't take that. And this is recent. This is from 104. But even more important, this one is actually from 103, where Kei uses Josuke soap bubbles with Born This Way, and it actually damages the head doctor. So we see the head doctor can be damaged by Josuke's new ability, which means that they can kill him and take the Rokakaka away from him, which is pretty important. Kei ends up dying, but it's because she attacked him. But the fact that she was able to land an attack in the first place was because of Josuke's soap bubbles. So, this is the end of chapter 104. This is the last 2 pages in chapter 104. So, the last 2 pages of JoJolion that we've gotten until the new chapter comes out. It's probably coming out sometime this week, but I'm recording this before chapter 105 comes out. I'm recording this on February 15th on Monday. I don't know why I said Tuesday. I literally have a calendar right here, and I still said Tuesday. So this is before chapter 105 comes out, but we see here Josuke is going to attack the head doctor with his new soap bubbles, which we know can damage the head doctor. And it's not even like he's getting ready for it. By the end of 104, he shot a soap bubble at the head doctor. So it's just a matter of whether it can actually kill the head doctor or not. Because I'm thinking that once it hits the head doctor, it could hit him in like a vital organ, and so it could kill the head doctor faster than a calamity can hit Josuke. And you might be thinking, what does this have to do with Jobin? Well, I kind of already said it. If they kill the head doctor right here, then that leaves opportunity for them to take the new Dokokaka, give it to Jobin, and then Jobin can be the villain again. Because then there's still the conflicting interest of Josuke wanting to use it for Holly, and then Jobin wanting to use it for Tsurugi. So, I don't know, but I feel like that's all I have, by the way. So hopefully this video won't be too much longer. But I just feel like, based on all of that sort of stuff, there's a lot of opportunity for Jobin to come back, be the main villain, because I feel like it's already been set up that he's the main villain, and then Toru just kind of came in, and everyone was like, oh, he's got a strong stand ability, you know? And he killed a couple people, so he's got to be main villain. But I think that they could probably kill Toru. I don't want to say easily, because it was a lot of work to get to this point, but I feel like they could totally kill Toru here. And then there's an opportunity for Jobin to come and be main villain, just like when they killed Funny Valentine and then Diego came in, you know? So that's really it. But I really had fun researching this video. It took me all day to research this, but I mean, it was really fun, just like thinking about it, putting the pieces together. So, you know, and at the end of the day, even if this doesn't end up happening and Jobin is actually dead here and Toru is the main villain of the part, you know, even if that is the case, I feel like this is still a fun thought experiment, you know? Because I feel like it's not even necessarily I don't think this is just speculation. Definitely, this thought of Jobin being main villain is definitely rooted in a lot of clues that the story has given us. So I feel like it's not out of the question for this to happen. So even if it doesn't end up happening this way, it's still a fun thought experiment, and it's still another possibility that can be explored. So that's really it. If you watch through this thing, you're a goddamn champ, and you clearly care about JoJolion and or me, more selectively the former. But yeah, I think post your own thoughts about this in the comments, your own rebuttals if you're a hard Toru stan. I mean, I think Toru's alright, but he definitely has a cool stand ability, but I just think he's not right as main villain. So this is why I think Jobin can still be main villain. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. Hope you're enjoying Anniversary Week so far. And yeah, let me know your guys' thoughts, and I'll be seeing you guys. Bye!